Hello again, everybody. Thanks for joining our session. I am Catalin Tudose. I am currently acting as a Java and web technologies expert at Luxoft Romania. And I am also an author at Manning and at Pluralsight. We'll spend together the next session in order to talk about some automated testing topic, more exactly about developing Java applications with Cucumber. The objectives of our session is that you find out the fundamentals of what is called behavior-driven development, and to put it in practice, we'll talk about the basics of Cucumber. And we'll see the basics of developing a Java behavior-driven development application with Cucumber. If you ask yourself, am I in the right place? For sure, you are in the right place. And in order, if you want to check it once more, the target of our session is related to developers, even if they are new to BDD or if they have some understanding of the BDD and want to work with Cucumber, or even if you are a tester and want to automate some part of your activity that will be beneficial for you. How we get to BDD? Probably you are aware about test-driven development, or TDD. It's a really nice way of developing software, but it comes with some limitations. You go by this cycle of test code refactor. So you write a test, you expect it to fail, then you go and write your code, you make the test pass, meaning the test is green now, and eventually you go and refactor, do some refactoring of your code in order to improve its internal structure. This is really nice, a great idea, but as I was saying, it comes with some limitations. Tests are tightly coupled to the implementation. So in order to write good tests, you have to be pretty much aware about the internals of the implementation. Whenever you write some test, you are going to be focused on the class or on the method to be tested. You will make sure that you are doing the things right, but in most cases, the business goals are neglected or not understood at all. You focus on the implementation and on testing the methods and the classes. And here comes behavior-driven development, which is an idea that is on top of TDD. And indeed, it has its roots in TDD. It is a methodology for developing IT solutions, but this time you would like to directly satisfy the business needs. So whenever you write software, you focus on adding business value to the application. And this is opposite to some traditional software development where you don't care about the business value that is added to the application. You just make your application work, but you don't ask yourself, how useful is my new feature for the end users? And we may say here that BDD is helping you making the right thing. Am I going to the right direction? Will my application satisfy the business needs? And in order to demonstrate our BDD approach, we will use a small application, Java, of course, that is managing some flights and some passengers. And we say that the company that is managing these flights and passengers is having some policies for adding a passenger to a flight. It says here, we would like to add a passenger to a flight. We ask ourselves, is the flight economy? If yes, we will always approve the request. If no, we have to look at the fact that the passenger is a VIP or not. If we would like to remove the passenger from our flight, this will be some other policy. Let's have a look at how it is in practice. We'll feel now a first taste of BDD, for the moment without introducing Cucumber, but we will feel exactly that BDD is now in the scene. If we have a look at this application, we see that we have some abstract class flight. It is extended by business flight, by economy flight, by premium flight. And for each of them, we have some policy of adding a passenger and removing a passenger to that flight. For example, if we look here at the policy of adding a passenger to an economy flight, you see you can always add that passenger to the economy flight. If you would like to remove it, you cannot do it if the passenger is a VIP. And we have some similar add and remove passenger policies for the business flight and the premium flight. A passenger is simply described by the name and by the fact that he or she is VIP or not. And we would like to test our application. For the moment, with a pure JUnit 5 solution. We said Cucumber will soon come into the scene, but we would like to demonstrate how we can simulate, or we have a first state of behavior-driven development only with JUnit 5. And if I will run this airport test, you will see how we can benefit of the nice features of JUnit 5, also in the spirit of behavior-driven development. What does it mean? It means that you will follow some path. Let me go here. I will show you how such a scenario may look like. So we have the feature of passenger policy. We're saying that the company follows a policy of adding and removing passengers, and we follow this scenario when we say we have an economy flight and regular passenger. Given there is an economy flight, when we have a regular passenger, then you can add and remove him from an economy flight, and you cannot add him more than once to that economy flight. This is a scenario, and the essential parts of the test are given when then. These are the essential keywords of behavior-driven development. And if we go back here, we see that we annotated our methods and our classes, our test classes and our test methods with this nice display name annotation that is provided by JUnit 5. And we also built here some nested tests. I have here airport test that has economy flight test nested, and that has regular passenger as nested test. This is also a nice feature of JUnit 5. We have a test class inside another test class, just like we have the old concept of nested classes in Java. And we took advantage of this JUnit 5 feature in order to build our tests, but BDD way. And if you have a look here, you will see that you are able to read this test just like a small story, like a scenario, as I was demonstrating. Given there is a premium flight, when we have a VIP passenger, then you can add and remove him from a premium flight. You can read it and you may immediately understand what the application is about. What does your application do? So you are focused now on the business needs or on the business requirements. Your focus is to add business value to your application, and you will say, okay, if I'm doing this, I'm expecting this reaction from the application. What we see here is that we have this hierarchy of tests in JUnit 5, where we initialize this flight and passengers before each test, and we say, okay, let's have some assertions here, and we're also taking benefit of this nice feature of JUnit 5 with assert all. What's the advantage of using assert all? instead of writing assert equals after assert equals. The big advantage is that you will always evaluate all assertions. If we have assert equals after assert equals after assert equals, and it fails at the first assert equals, then the rest of the assertions will no longer be verified. While with this assert all, we can check everything, even if it fails at the first step, then the rest of the assertions will be executed. And this is the first taste of behavior-driven development. As I was saying, the nice thing is that you can read the scenario and you may understand the business requirements from the very beginning of running your tests, even if this is done by a less technical person. Okay, now let's move to the next phase, and this is the introduction of Cucumber, which is an important part of our speech today. What is Cucumber? Cucumber is a behavior-driven development framework. It is available for Java, not only for Java, but if we want to use it in Java, what I needed to do was to insert these two dependencies here. First thing first, insert these two dependencies here in the pom.xml. The structure of the classes is absolutely the same. We would like to see how we approach behavior-driven development with Cucumber this time. Let's have a look at what a Cucumber feature means. You see it here. You can read it in plain English, or you can even read it in plain Romanian or whatever language you would like to, with some small conditions. You need to add these keywords: feature, scenario, and of course given, when, then, and is related to this then. So we do something and we expect two results here. You see, anyone can read this file, even if he or she is not a developer, even if he or she has less technical knowledge. Then these scenarios are readable and easy to understand. You don't care, for the moment, you don't care about the implementation. Who can provide these scenarios? For example, the business analyst is a really appropriate person to develop these scenarios and to handle them to the developer. And the developer will read them and will understand, okay, this is what I need to implement. These are, in fact, the acceptance tests that we have for our application. Especially if you are working agile or if you are working in some incremental development environment, these acceptance tests are critical. And these Cucumber scenarios may represent, in fact, the acceptance tests. Your application is good to go if we pass these acceptance tests. Okay, what next? The developer has just received this feature. Okay, now he or she is aware about what needs to be implemented. Let's have a look at the implementation. So you have here a Cucumber test. What is particular about Cucumber test? You see these annotations. You see here given, when, then, and this then again in fact corresponds to and here, but it's the same idea, a consequence, what I am expecting. What's the mission of the developer once he or she has received these things? Tests need to be translated into code. So you read here, given there is an economy flight, and this is the step you see here. And you ask yourself, What does it mean that I am starting with an economy flight and you transpose this in code? When we have a regular passenger, how do you transpose it in code? Okay, we initialize this regular passenger. This VIP flag is false. Then you can add and remove him from an economy flight and you write the corresponding code. Again, you cannot add a regular passenger to an economy flight more than once. And all these steps are implemented by one particular method. So we may say here that we have a correspondence, a one-to-one correspondence between these steps and these methods. Is it really one-to-one? If I have here, given there is an economy flight once, and I have here, given there is an economy flight twice, how many methods do I need? Of course, the nice thing is that you will need here only one method annotated with given there is economy flight. And if I have forgotten or not yet implemented it, and I have a look here, you see that the plugin of the Cucumber plugin that is installed here in my IntelliJ IDEA environment will signal that, hey, you didn't implement that step. How can we run such a scenario? You see here, we have only the steps. But in order to run such a scenario, we need this particular class called Cucumber test. You may name it however you would like to, but it serves as entry point for all the tests that you have to run. Say here, run with Cucumber class, which is the Cucumber runner. Cucumber options, we say plugin pretty, it means how you will display the result of our test. Features, class pass features means that these feature files, feature is this important concept from Cucumber, you will find here on the class pass in the features folder. Resources is on the class pass because Maven brings it on the class pass, and here on the features folder you are going to find whatever feature you need. And then there will be a correspondence between all these steps from here and the steps defined here in the feature file. Let's run this Cucumber test. Just a moment, please. It will be immediately ready. Okay. You see again that you are able to read these scenarios step by step and immediately understand what it is about. Given there is an economy flight, when we have a regular passenger, then you can add and remove him from an economy flight, and you cannot add the regular passenger to an economy flight more than once. You immediately understand what's the goal of this feature. Okay, what's the big step between our previous JUnit 5 approach and what is now? If I look here, you see that I will have here more nested steps. And this is, of course, mostly because we have nested class inside a nested test class inside a test class. While here, it is a more linear execution. You see, given, when, then, and, add are the same level. It is even easier to read and understand them. Then, let's have a look at how this test looks like. Maybe its length will be significant. We see here 207 lines. If I have a look here at the cucumber test, what do I see here? 157 lines, so about 1/4 of the lines have been removed. Of course, we may ask ourselves, do we have the same test? Do we test the same thing? And I will immediately answer to this thing. But you see some important code reduction. Why? Among others, because we removed some code that we needed to repeat here. For example, with this nested test with our really nice JUnit 5 feature, we have to declare economy flight Mike, James, and to initialize them here. And you will declare Mike and James here, and you will initialize them here, because in the nested structure, they cannot be shared. While here, with Cucumber, you will have to initialize things only once whenever you encounter this step or this step. You will have exactly the same method and you are going to execute it. Okay, one question was, do we really test the same thing? Which is some measure of the quality of our tests. And one measure of the quality of our test is the code coverage, which describes the degree to which the source code of a program is executed when some particular test suite runs. It is not an absolute truth, but it is an important metric, because you may ask yourself, which code coverage percentage is feasible? What should I target? 80%, 90%? May I test everything? From my experience in many projects, target of at least 80% is part of the definition of done. So your features will not be accepted unless at least 80% of the code is tested. What I can tell you is that the step from 80 to 90% and even upper is really hard. So as much as you would like to test more, you will encounter more and more difficulties. You will have eventually to do some artifices and so on. And I was saying that this is an important metric, but it does not ensure us that our code is working perfectly, even if in some cases we may encounter 100%. This is a separate discussion, but just to mention now that it is related to the quality of our tests. And if you would like to make sure that your tests are of high quality, you should think about what is called mutation testing. But for now, our goal is to check if when we moved from pure JUnit 5 solution to Cucumber solution, did we keep the same code coverage? And let's verify this. I will simply take it and execute it with code coverage, run airport test with coverage. And I have here 100% in all classes. So all classes, all methods, and all lines are executed from our tests. This is a particular situation when we were able to execute at 100%. In most cases, it will not be possible. Just our application is designed of this kind so that it allows us 100%. What about the Cucumber tests? Let's run them with code coverage. Run Cucumber test with coverage. And we have also 100% at the level of classes, methods, and lines. So what is really important here is not necessarily the 100%, because this is particular to the application, but the fact that we were able to keep the same code coverage with the help of Cucumber, and in a nicer way, writing this kind of features and writing less code. I was saying when I was comparing the length of this passenger policy Java, which is the Cucumber test, with this airport test, which is the JUnit 5 test, that I would like to understand if I'm going the right way, if the reduction of the lines of code in tests kept the same code coverage, and we have just demonstrated this. Okay, more about Cucumber. What else can we do? You may ask yourself, what about these annotations? Given, when, then. Of course, they come because I imported here the Cucumber dependencies. I inserted here the Cucumber dependencies, and I imported here the Cucumber classes. Just to let you know that from the Cucumber point of view, this is just an annotation corresponding to a step. There is no semantic difference between this given, when, and then. It is just a step that will be executed when the scenario will be browsed and the execution will pass step by step. But how can we generate this given or when or then annotated method? Do we have to write by hand at given and this text? Let's presume that these methods were not yet implemented. And if I move and I have a look here, first of all, I noticed that the Cucumber plugin is signaling this to me. And if I want to run this test, let's wait a few seconds. Of course, says here test ignored, but what is really important is that I am signaled about the missing steps. And if I have no step at the very beginning and I execute the Cucumber test, I will get this skeleton and I will just copy and paste this skeleton of methods, say, okay, given there is an economy flight, and I will have to write just the code, but I will be able to take the skeleton, meaning the methods with annotations and this string argument for all of them. So I will be able to get quickly to business. If I move back here, of course, the plugin, the Cucumber plugin, will notice that the steps are there and will no longer highlight them. Something more. I will be able to quickly execute directly such a feature file, not to necessarily execute Cucumber test. If I want a really quick feedback, I can execute them and I will see here 6 scenarios, 6 passed, 22 steps, 22 passed. So this is something really quick and can be easily executed even by less technical persons. just have to be able to execute this feature file. And in order to do this, I need to have here at edit configuration, you see here, I need to introduce this feature to provide this main class, which is the main Cucumber class. Glue BDD airport is the name of this package. And I'm telling where should you look for feature files. Here, this is the feature file that I'm highlighting here. And with some small configuration, you will be able to quickly execute directly this feature file. Okay, let's have a look at more from the side of Cucumber. Maybe you ask yourselves, do we have some more features, maybe some parameterized tests, maybe some regular expressions? These are really frequent in testing, and of course we have them. Just to show here some bonus policy here. When we calculate some bonus points, if the passenger is VIP, we calculate that bonus points dividing his or her mileage by 10. If he or she is not a VIP, we calculate these bonus points dividing this mileage by 20. This is not complicated business logic, but what we would like to use it for is to demonstrate these capabilities of Cucumber to provide parameterized tests. And we introduce here this bonus policy feature. What's the difference between this one and this one that I have just demonstrated? Instead of scenario, it is using this concept of scenario outline, and in plus it is parameterized, saying here when the regular passenger travels mileage 1 and mileage 2 and mileage 3, meaning we have parameters, then the bonus points of the regular passenger should be, and I have here these points. And I have here this table of examples. So I can test and say, when I travel 349, then 319, and then 623, and I'm a regular passenger, then I should have 64 bonus points. You see, I may introduce here a series of input data for the test. No matter how many I would like to, I introduce here 5 rows. How does this transpose into the code? Let's have a look together here at bonus policy. What is of particular interest for us in this situation is a method that is annotated with this, where we're having these regular expressions. Just to tell you that this \\d plus means some integer. And you see that we have here 1, 2, 3 regular expressions of this kind, and we have here 1, 2, 3 parameters, which will mean that at the execution, Cucumber is seeing, yes, I have here 3 parameters, integers, and I will take each integer from this table. I will inject it here, and then when I will verify this, I will inject here the points, and I will say, yes, it passes, or no, it does not pass. But this is how I can use regular expressions and parameterized tests with Cucumber. Let's run again this Cucumber test. I remind you that this is the entry point for running Cucumber tests in JUnit. I will focus only here in bonus policy because we have already discussed passenger policy. You see here, I have execution for each row given when, and I am told when the regular passenger travels 349 and 319 and 623. At the execution, I see how each parameter is replaced with its actual value. Let's see that it really works. And here, if instead of 100, I will insert, instead of 64, I will insert 100. And re-executing this, of course, this test fails, but what fails? Not everything fails. I'm immediately told only this example is failing with this line when you tried to verify this then step. I was expecting 100, but actual it was 64. So you see, I have 4 tests, 4 examples that pass, and I have 1 failing example. Let's go back to it here and execute it once again and just make sure that we left everything in the right place. This concludes the demonstration, including the feature with the bonus policy and with parameterized tests. I'm ready for questions and for discussions.
We're still here. Yeah, we're thinking of that.
Sure.
Yeah, we were looking in the chat to see the questions. There are a couple of questions, of course. First of all, congrats for the walkthrough. It's been useful for me to remind some of the things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have some questions from the audience. Yeah, there are a bit specific questions. For instance, one is about the feature files. I'm taking the simplest one. Should class name and feature files have the same name?
No, not necessarily. Let me go back here. So it will detect what it is important is that Cucumber test will look for this feature files here in the class path features, and we'll have to match some step or some steps from here to the steps from here. Of course, it will be a good practice if you have some naming convention, but you may name your classes some other way, and Cucumber will detect how to match the steps from the feature file to the steps from the classes.
Right, thank you. And the next one also about feature files. This was an earlier one. Is it possible to see this feature file in a Jenkins build or in the logs? Or maybe there are better ways to generate a human readable report after each build?
To generate some human readable report, you may use, for example, Jacob or Java code coverage if you would like to get some report in the sense that I'm thinking about of a report right now. So what I understand it is about, for example, if you would like to generate a report of what passed, what failed, and which is the code coverage. Something of this kind that I'm showing here, but executed together with Jenkins, for example, during the automated build, and not necessarily locally here, because this is on the developer's local environment. And you can introduce here some, for example, some Java plugin that will provide you some reports. This is what I think it addresses best the question.
Yeah, I think it refers to this as well. Looking here, it's also a remark here. I see Cucumber tests execute much faster than JUnit 5. Is this always true?
Let's say something that here in phase 3 here and in phase 2. So when we started to introduce Cucumber is not working alone here. It is working on top of JUnit 5, or it is working on top of some unit testing framework, because everything you see here, yes, we are having these annotations, we match these annotations with these steps, but we have to do some assertions, and we do some assertions here with the help of JUnit 5. Of course, I imported here both the Cucumber dependencies and the JUnit 5 dependencies. I'm not absolutely forced to use JUnit 5. I may combine Cucumber with JUnit 4. I may combine Cucumber with TestNG or with some other unit testing framework. The fact that Cucumber needs to sit on top of some unit testing, of course, it comes with its own advantages, but it uses at least some part of JUnit 5 or whatever other unit testing framework that it needs.
I was curious if you managed to experience other frameworks or other ways of achieving the same goals. There are many
other about other frameworks.
Yeah, like, I don't know, maybe.
Yes,
frameworks
we can briefly talk about other frameworks. Cucumber is probably now not only widespread, but it is raising. You may ask yourself, which are the alternatives? I understand that this is something that you're thinking about. JBehave is one alternative that was initially developed in the early stages of behavior-driven development, exactly by the inventor of this behavior-driven development concept that was the topic of our today's session, and his name is Dan North. What is the difference? They share many things in common about give and when, then, about the approach. What I would say, why I would say that Cucumber is really moving faster, because if you even look now at the source code and the code commits, you will see that in Cucumber you have commits practically every week, while JBehave passed over its maturity phase. This is one comparison. Of course, we may have some other good frameworks like Selenium, but that one is particular, especially for front-end interaction. While here, as I have just demonstrated, it is working mostly in backend. If you will allow me one moment to make some reference at my book.
Sure. Please.
Just a moment. You see, this is the book that I authored in November 2010. It discusses about Cucumber and JUnit in some particular topic, in some particular chapter about BDD. It also discusses about Selenium. Which one is best? It also depends on the context. But if I would start now a project, or if I would need to introduce behavior-driven development in an already existing project, and I'm not tied to other dependencies, I will start for the backend for sure with Cucumber, because nowadays it looks like the most dynamic framework. I would say it is updated even in small parts practically every week.
So yeah, Catalin, it looks like you have a passion for learning and for teaching, right?
Yes.
Because I know that besides being part of the Luxoft team, you're also teaching people.
I'm teaching people, including at Luxoft, where I'm acting as Java and web technologies expert and trainer. You asked me how it was my day. I said it was very busy because today between 9:30 and 1:30, I was conducting a course.
Okay, okay. And
And
now the fun continued at Codecamp.
I'm continuing the coaching more in a shorter period, but more intensive. I have to admit that this is more intensive. And if you will ask me what did I teach this morning, I thought it was on the JavaScript, but I also introduced some automated framework for testing, which is called Mocha. And what we'll do tomorrow, we'll use this framework to continue the development of our application. So what I'm saying here is that automated testing is absolutely crucial, because you need to make sure that your application is working fine. I'm saying that instead of spending many resources for manual testing, automated testing should be there to cover 90% or plus of the manual testing. Of course, human testing is also important. And I'm supporting this idea of behavior-driven development, especially because it ties you to the business needs. If you write unit test, you write the unit test to test this method and this method and this class. You will not have the big image about what your application is doing. But I was demonstrating, you read these feature files, Cucumber or some other behavior-driven development framework, and you will understand much quicker what it is about. Imagine you have a team and you have to coach that team or to bring some new people. They will look at the tests. This is some classical way, but if these tests are written the BDD way, people will understand much quicker what it is about.
Yeah. So BDD bridges really well the gap between requirements, specification, and the implementation, and influences a lot the way people understand the business and the industry domain, which is...
Yeah. Not to mention that you have, let's say, called living requirements that you always use, and not just lines of text that get outdated as you go along with the project. Cool. Thanks a lot, Catalin.
Thank you so much.
It was great having you at Codecamp.